Welcome to week 1 of the Massive Online Open course on Peace Park Development and Management. In lesson 1, we will focus on the context for the creation of peace parks. We will define the peace parks and their relationship to transboundary conservation areas. We will discuss the links between environmental conservation and conflict. We will outline the environmental, socioeconomic, and cultural benefits of peace parks. And we will discuss the international policy framework for peace parks and their contributions to the achievement of Aichi biodiversity targets and the Sustainable Development Goals. So, what is a peace park? Peace parks are protected areas which are described by IUCN as a clearly defined geographical space, recognized, dedicated, and managed through legal or other effective means to achieve the long-term conservation of nature with associated ecosystem services and cultural values. Terms such as Transfrontier Protected Area, Transboundary Natural Resource Management Area, Peace Park, Park for Peace, and Transfrontier Conservation Areas have been used interchangeably, often leading to confusion about their priorities and objectives. To clarify the concept, the World Commission on Protected Areas of International Union for Conservation of Nature defined 3 categories of transboundary conservation areas and 1 special designation, a Park for Peace. The first category is the transboundary protected area, which is a clearly defined geographical space consisting of protected areas that are ecologically connected across 1 or more international boundaries and involves some form of cooperation. The second category is the transboundary conservation landscape and/or seascape, which is an ecologically connected area crossing 1 or more international boundaries, including both protected areas and multiple resource use areas, and involves some form of cooperation. The third category is the transboundary migration conservation area, which corresponds to wildlife habitats in 2 or more countries that are necessary to sustain populations of migratory species and involves some form of cooperation. Finally, according to the IUCN, the Park for Peace is a special designation that may be applied to any of the 3 types of transboundary conservation areas and is dedicated to the promotion, celebration, and commemoration of peace and cooperation. The IUCN has used the term Park for Peace rather than Peace Park because the latter has often been used for situations besides transboundary conservation. For example, some peace parks commemorate battlefields, while others are protected areas within a country that have no transboundary context. It is important to note that all peace parks are transboundary conservation areas, but not all transboundary conservation areas are peace parks. Throughout this course, we will use the term Peace Park because it is the term applied by the Convention on Biological Diversity's Peace and Biodiversity Dialogue Initiative. Ultimately, Peace parks link environmental conservation to conflict resolution and peace building. Historically, political boundaries have not considered key ecosystems, with habitats being split across boundaries around the world. This has made ecosystem approaches to conservation ineffective, disturbed wildlife migration routes, and hampered the availability of ecosystem services for people. This is significant because natural resources can initiate or prolong conflicts for many reasons, such as natural resource scarcity, natural resources serving to prolong conflicts, and unequal access to natural resources. In this context, environmental cooperation, also known as environmental peace building, has become a popular instrument for conflict mitigation. For example, land, forests, minerals, oils, water, and other resources can provide the foundations for rebuilding livelihoods and national economies after prolonged war or conflict. Likewise, natural resource management or extraction can also provide jobs to support the reintegration of former combatants. Beginning with the creation of Whatcom Glacier International Peace Park on the border of Canada and the US in 1932, peace parks have become a popular instrument for peace building. However, besides peace building and conservation, peace parks serve other objectives. As you're starting to think about the development of your peace park, consider the specific objectives that your peace park would aim to meet. These may include preventing or resolving tension, including over access to natural resources. promoting the resolution of armed conflict and reconciliation following armed conflict, supporting long-term cooperative conservation of biodiversity, ecosystem services, and natural and cultural values across boundaries, sharing biodiversity and cultural resource management skills and experience, promoting more efficient and effective cooperative management practices, and enhancing the benefits of conservation and promoting benefit sharing across boundaries. Having reviewed Peace Park objectives, it is recommended that practitioners start thinking about the benefits that Peace Park creation would bring to a particular geographical area. To help you start, review the typical environmental, socioeconomic, and cultural benefits associated with Peace Park creation identified in Lesson 1. Some examples may be strengthen ecosystem resilience in the face of climate change, increase tourism opportunities and transboundary tourism due to relaxed border control processes, and an enhanced ability for communities to develop and promote a regional identity. As you're reviewing the possible benefits, consider the challenges relevant to the area where your Peace Park would be located. Because of their multidimensional benefits, the establishment of peace parks is promoted by several international programs and conventions, such as the Convention on Biological Diversity through the Peace and Biodiversity Dialogue Initiative, or PBDI, the World Heritage Convention through the Natural Transboundary World Heritage Sites, the UNESCO Man and Biosphere Program through the Transboundary Biosphere Reserves, and the Ramsar Convention on Wetlands of International Importance through its transboundary Ramsar sites. Each of these conventions supports the creation of peace parks in their designated way. Learn more about them when you review the lesson. This information is essential for understanding how the peace park that you are developing fits into the transboundary conservation agenda. The work of today's Peace Park practitioners is taking place at a time of growing recognition of the importance of their creation. The reason for their increasing numbers is the realization that, since natural systems transcend political boundaries, protecting life on Earth and promoting peace and collaboration among countries will ultimately require an international approach. In its 10th meeting, the Conference of Parties on the Convention on Biological Diversity adopted the Strategic Plan on Biodiversity for the 2011-2020 period. It includes 20 targets, known as the Aichi Biodiversity Targets, or ABTs. These targets call for effective and urgent action to halt the loss of biodiversity by 2020. Although peace parks are in some way related to all ABTs, they are particularly relevant for ABTs 1, 11, 12, 14, and 15. In September 2015, the United Nations General Assembly adopted the resolution Transforming Our World, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which is a plan of action for people, planet and prosperity, peace and partnership, that all the countries and stakeholders will implement collaboratively. The 2030 Agenda includes 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, and explicitly recognizes that social and economic development depends on the sustainable management of natural resources. Biodiversity considerations are included in more than half of the goals. At the same time, peace parks are particularly relevant for Goal 16, promote just, peace and inclusive societies by delivering benefits that extend beyond their boundaries. As you're planning the development of a peace park, keep in mind the connection between your work and these goals and international commitments. These goals have extraordinary support from stakeholders around the world. Drawing linkages between various conservation goals related to these frameworks will allow you to build a strong case for your peace park. Orienting yourself among the goals and targets will ensure that your peace park will contribute to the achievement of as many local, regional, and global targets as possible, drawing the attention of a wide range of stakeholders. Peace parks are increasingly effective and serve as an ideal project plan for many reasons. Transboundary protected areas can successfully conserve large landscape-level areas as opposed to disconnected pieces of ecosystems. For this reason, peace parks can achieve both conservation and peace-building goals, which appeal to stakeholders, including governments, development organizations, and civil society organizations. Similarly, donors have opportunities to achieve more ambitious targets. Lastly, local communities have opportunities to establish alternative incomes through Peace Park management. With this, we want to leave you with 4 key takeaways for action when planning to create a Peace Park. Number 1. Identify the link between environmental considerations and conflict. Ask yourself such questions as, is the peace park being proposed in an area with current armed conflict where natural resources could play a significant role in negotiation? Is the peace park being proposed to commemorate stable diplomatic relations between countries and conserve key biodiversity and ecosystem services? These are all relevant questions to determine whether there'll be a need to practice environmental peace building before establishing a peace park. Number 2, determine the type of transboundary conservation area for the peace park. According to the IUCN, as we've noted before in this lecture, there are 3 types of transboundary conservation areas, and peace parks represent a special designation that may be applied to any of these 3 types. When planning a peace park, review the typology to determine which category your peace park would fit under. Number 3, explore the Enable International Policy Framework. Prominent examples of international conservation-related conventions that can guide the creation of peace parks can all be found in Lesson 1. Before creating a peace park, review this international policy framework to have a clear understanding of how the peace park that you're developing would fit into this global conservation agenda. Lastly, number 4, assess the contribution to global biodiversity and sustainable development strategies. Peace parks can help achieve several ABTs and SDGs. When planning a peace park, take these strategies into consideration to ensure that the proposed protected area will contribute to the achievement of as many local, regional, and global targets as possible. Now that Lesson 1 has provided you with an overview for the creation and development of a peace park, Lesson 2 will dive deeper into the specific stages required for establishing, planning, and managing and monitoring a peace park, highlighting the tools to assist you along the way.